2 weeks before my wedding, my mother emailed me a catering bill for 120 guests. I had invited 84. The menu listed prime rib, a champagne wall, and a 5-tier cake I had never ordered. At the bottom was a note in my mother's neat block letters. Please pay by Friday so Chloe's day is not ruined. I called her before I finished reading. She answered with the patient sigh she used when she believed I was making simple things difficult. Then she told me my wedding had been moved to the community hall near my parents' church. My younger sister would be using Willow House instead. You can get married anywhere, Mom said. Chloe only gets one chance to have this. What she did not know was that the original venue contract was in the locked drawer beside me. My name was on every page, and one clause mattered more than she knew. Before I tell you how my mother tried to replace me at my own wedding, ask yourself this. When does family help become permission to take what is yours? My name is Mara Collins. I was 33 that fall, and I worked as a structural engineer in Richmond, Virginia. I spent my days checking load paths, reviewing drawings, and asking what would happen if one small failure put pressure on everything around it. That question had followed me long before I became an engineer. In my family, I was the part expected to carry the extra weight. My sister Chloe was the part everyone rushed to protect. Chloe was 3 years younger than me. She was bright, funny, and naturally good at making a room turn toward her. People remembered the way she laughed. They remembered her clothes. They remembered which dessert she liked. I was the dependable one. People remembered that I had a car, a savings account, and a habit of showing up early. Mom called that balance. I called it my childhood. When I was 12, my birthday dinner was moved because Chloe had a dance rehearsal. Mom promised we would celebrate the next night. The next night became the weekend, and the weekend became a grocery store cake eaten after Chloe's recital. Dad handed me the first slice. You understand, he said. I did understand, that was the problem. At 16, I saved for a summer drafting course at the community college. 2 days before payment was due, Mom asked to borrow the money for Chloe's cheer camp. She said it would only be for a week, and the money came back 4 months later, after the course had started. Mom told me there would be other classes. She was right. There were. I just had to wait another year and pay more. By college, I had learned to keep deadlines private. I filled out my own financial aid forms. I opened an account at a bank my parents did not use. I kept copies of every document. That habit was not rebellion. It was maintenance. Every phone call followed the same pattern. Mom asked about my grades, then spent 20 minutes describing Chloe's latest crisis. A roommate was rude. A professor could be unfair, or a boyfriend could be confused, and Chloe's problems became emergencies while mine were treated like weather. But I loved my sister anyway. That matters because Chloe was not cruel when we were young. She was simply raised inside a system that moved obstacles before she reached them. She did not have to ask who had carried them away. Sometimes she tried. During my senior year, she drove 3 hours to watch me present a bridge design. She sat in the back row and clapped too loudly. Afterward, she gave me a silver mechanical pencil engraved with my initials. I know everybody thinks you don't need cheering, she said, but you do. I still have that pencil. The trouble was that Chloe could see the system when it cost her nothing. When she wanted something, she became very good at not seeing it. I met Evan Reed at a city inspection meeting 6 years before our wedding. He was representing a nonprofit that wanted to turn an abandoned grocery store into a youth center. I was there to explain why the roof could not safely hold the new equipment. He listened without interrupting, and then he asked what they could change instead of asking me to change my answer. Evan was a high school counselor. He had a calm face, a dry sense of humor, and a gift for making teenagers feel like their worst day was not their whole life. On our first date, we ate tacos beside the river and argued about whether old buildings had personalities. I said they had histories. He said that was an engineer's way of admitting he was right. I laughed hard enough to spill salsa on my sleeve, and we dated for 4 years before he proposed without a crowd or hidden photographer. He asked me in our kitchen while a pot of rice boiled over behind him. "I had a better plan," he said, looking at the mess on the stove. "But this feels honest." He held out a simple oval ring. I said yes before he reached the end of the question. For the first few minutes, the engagement belonged only to us, and then we called Evan's parents. His mother cried. His father shouted so loudly that Evan had to move the phone away from his ear. Then I called mine, and Mom screamed in delight. Dad said he had been waiting for this. Chloe demanded a picture of the ring before she said congratulations. Nothing about that bothered me, not yet. The next morning, Mom sent me a spreadsheet titled Mara's Perfect Wedding. It had 12 tabs. I should have recognized the warning. I called Mom and thanked her for putting it together. Then I told her Evan and I planned to pay for the wedding ourselves. Silence. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "Because we saved for it. We are still your parents." "I know," she let out a small laugh. "Then let us act like it." The sentence sounded generous. It also sounded familiar, but I told her she could join tour and share ideas under one clear rule. Evan and I would make every final decision and sign every contract. Mom agreed immediately, and for the first month, she was wonderful. She brought bottled water to venue visits. She took notes without interrupting. She remembered which places had steep stairs that would be hard for Evan's grandfather. I began to wonder whether I had been unfair. Willow House was the 4th venue we saw. It sat outside Richmond on 10 acres of maple trees and low green fields. The main building was a restored brick farmhouse with wide windows and a covered porch. Behind it stood a glass reception room that caught the evening light. Nothing was gold. Nothing sparkled. It felt warm, simple, and real. Evan squeezed my hand before the tour ended. "This one," he whispered. I knew. The venue manager was June Parker, a woman in her 50s with cropped gray hair and red reading glasses. She explained the contract in plain language. The base package covered the house, the glass room, tables, chairs, and an on-site coordinator. Catering was separate, but handled through 3 approved companies, and the venue required a minimum guest count of 60 and allowed no more than 120 inside. Our date was the 3rd Saturday in October. The total venue fee was $14,000. Half was due when we signed, and the rest was due 30 days before the wedding. Evan and I had saved $28,600 for the entire event. We planned for 84 guests, dinner, a small band, seasonal flowers, and a lemon cake from a bakery near our apartment. We could afford it without debt. That mattered to both of us. June slid the contract across the table. The cover was cream-colored, with a copper Willow House seal pressed into the corner. I read every page. One section allowed us to name planning contacts who could speak with vendors, receive schedules, and suggest changes. A planning contact could not alter the date, client names, guest limit, or financial obligations. Every final change required written approval from either me or Evan, yet I still named Mom as a planning contact and looked at Evan before I signed. "Are you sure?" "She has been good," he smiled. "Then I am glad." June gave us a copy in a matching cream folder, and I kept it in my work bag until we got home. Then I placed it in the locked drawer of my desk with our passports and insurance papers. Mom took a photo of the copper seal before we left. She posted it that night with the caption, "My oldest girl found her dream place." For once, I felt seen. The feeling lasted 3 weeks. Chloe got engaged at Sunday dinner. Her boyfriend, Lucas, stood beside my parents' fireplace and asked everyone to look at a photo on the television. It showed Chloe on a beach, holding up a ring while he knelt in the sand. The proposal had happened the previous weekend. They had waited to announce it in person. Mom cried harder than she had when I called, and Dad opened a bottle of champagne he had been saving. I hugged Chloe. She smelled like coconut lotion and the perfume she had worn since college. "I can't believe we are doing this together," she said. "I meant it when I told her I was happy." They also wanted it quickly. Mom pulled my venue spreadsheet from her laptop before dessert. The tabs I had ignored came alive. She compared dates, packages, and guest limits while Chloe leaned over her shoulder. Dad refilled glasses, and Lucas took a call in the hallway. Evan sat beside me and traced one finger along the edge of his napkin. "This is going to become a competition," he said when we were alone in the kitchen. "Only if I compete." He looked toward the dining room. "Your mother can compete without you." I knew he was right, and I still wanted him to be wrong. The comparisons started within days. Chloe's flowers, music, bridesmaids, and guest count became the standard Mom used to measure mine. I answered once. "Our wedding is not a smaller version of Chloe's." Mom replied with a heart. The next week, she sent me 3 links to crystal chargers. I stopped opening them. Chloe found a hotel ballroom in downtown Richmond and placed a courtesy hold on a Saturday in April. She told everyone it was booked. It was only a courtesy hold. I knew the 10-day hold required a deposit because Chloe called me on the 9th day. "Can you lend me $6,000 until Lucas gets his commission?" I was standing beside a bridge inspection truck in the rain. Cars hissed past on the wet road. "For the hotel deposit? Just for a month. Do you have the rest of the wedding budget?" "We will." That meant no. I told her I could not loan money from our wedding savings. I offered to help her review other venues with lower deposits. Her voice changed. "I didn't ask for a lecture. I didn't give you one. You always make everything sound like a risk report. I am asking whether you can pay me back. We are sisters. That does not answer the question." She hung up, and Mom called before I reached my office. "Chloe is embarrassed," she said. "She asked me for $6,000, and you have it. It is committed. To centerpieces, to my wedding." Mom went quiet. Then she used the phrase that had followed me all my life. "You can handle a change, Chloe can't." I looked through the windshield at the rain. No, it was one word. It felt heavier than it should have. Mom did not speak to me for 4 days. Then she appeared at our apartment with soup and acted as if nothing had happened. That was her real skill. She could erase the conflict without changing the behavior. I let her. The hotel hold expired, and Chloe told relatives the ballroom had scheduling problems until Mom repeated the story often enough to make it sound official. They booked a country club for the following May instead. The deposit was smaller, and the later date gave them more time. I assumed the problem was solved. I should have checked the load path. By early summer, our wedding plans were steady enough for Evan to choose a navy suit. I found a silk dress with narrow straps and no train. It cost less than Mom expected, and more than I had ever spent on clothing. When I stepped out of the fitting room, Mom stared at me for a long second. Then Chloe said, "It is very Mara." I knew what she meant. Clean, plain, responsible. Mom asked the consultant whether the dress came with a fuller skirt. I bought it anyway, and the first real sign of trouble came when our florist, Bate, called while I was reviewing concrete repairs at work. She wanted to confirm whether I had changed the color palette from rust and cream to blush and white. I had not. She forwarded the request. It came from Mom's email. The message said the bride had reconsidered. She wanted a more romantic look. It included photos from Chloe's inspiration board. I called Mom. "Oh, that," she said. "I was only asking what was possible. You wrote that the bride reconsidered. You are the bride. Those are Chloe's colors." A pause. Chloe helped me explain the idea. I told Bate to ignore any change I had not approved myself. Then I reminded Mom of the rule. She sounded wounded. "I am trying to save you work. I did not ask you to change the flowers." "Fine, do everything alone." She hung up. An hour later, Dad texted me. Dad's text said, "Your mother is trying her best." I stared at those 6 words until the screen dimmed. Evan found me at the kitchen table that evening with the florist email open. "We can remove her as a contact," he said. "I know. Do you want to?" I wanted to say yes. Instead, I pictured Mom carrying bottled water through Willow House and the photo she had posted. My oldest girl found her dream place. "Not yet." Evan did not argue, and he reached across the table and covered my hand. "Then we document." That was the first time he used the word. We created a wedding folder in our shared drive. Vendor emails went there. So did invoices, approvals, and notes from every call. I changed the planning portal password and turned on a code that went to my phone without telling Mom, and weeks later we mailed invitations in July. There were 84 cream envelopes, each with a small line drawing of the Willow House porch, and Evan's father addressed half by hand. My father did the other half at our kitchen table. Mom checked the guest list twice. Chloe brought wine and complained that my envelopes needed more sparkle. It was almost normal, and then my aunt called. She wanted to know whether her invitation had been lost. Her name was not on our list. Mom had asked me to invite her years ago, but they had stopped speaking after a dispute over my grandmother's furniture. I checked the portal. A second guest list had been uploaded 3 days earlier. It contained 147 names. Some were relatives I had not seen since childhood, and some were friends of my parents. 12 were people from Lucas's family. The file name was Final Family List. I opened the access log. Mom had uploaded it. I called her from the parking garage at work. "What is the second guest list?" She answered too quickly. "A backup." "For what?" "In case you had room." "We do not. The venue holds more than 84. It holds 120. Then you have 36 empty seats." I closed my eyes. "Empty seats are not invitations." Mom laughed as if I had made a joke. "You are paying for a room that size. We are paying for our wedding." "People will be offended." "People I did not invite? They are family. So are the 84 people on my list." Her voice sharpened. "Chloe needs to make a good impression with Lucas's relatives. They are coming from out of state." I leaned against my car. "This is not Chloe's event." No one said it was. The lie was small enough to pass through the phone. I removed the second list and called June. She confirmed that no invitations had gone through the venue. She also reminded me that any count above 120 was impossible indoors. "Your mother has been asking about tent space," June added. My grip tightened around the phone. "What tent space?" She asked whether the lawn could hold another reception setup. "Did she say why?" June hesitated. "She called it a family expansion." I thanked her and asked that every request be copied to me. That night, I removed Mom's upload access, and she could still view the schedule and communicate with vendors, but she could no longer add files. I told her in a text. She replied, "Understood." No heart this time. The next Sunday, my parents invited us to dinner. Chloe and Lucas were already there when Evan and I arrived. A seating chart covered the dining table, and it was not mine. My place cards were small cream rectangles with pressed leaves. These were white circles edged in gold. At the top, in looping script, were the names Chloe and Lucas, and I stopped in the doorway. Mom rushed forward and folded the chart. "It is only a mock-up for Willow House." Chloe looked at her plate. Dad stood at the counter cutting bread with unnecessary care. Mom smiled. "We wanted to see how their guest count might fit in a space like yours." "A space like mine? It is a useful comparison." I looked at Chloe. The answer came too fast, and Lucas cleared his throat before saying they were reviewing options. Evan moved beside me, not in front, while Mom called the chart a harmless mock-up. I let the meal continue until dessert. Mom filled the silence with traffic, flowers, and a cousin's new baby, but Chloe barely spoke and Dad complimented the chicken twice. Then I looked directly at my sister. "Show me the country club contract." Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. When she asked what I meant, I reminded her that she had called the date booked and asked to see the confirmation. Mom said the contract was private. I told her my wedding portal had been private too. No one answered. Evan set down his napkin and said we were leaving. Mom tried to exclude him by calling it a family discussion. He stood beside me and answered, "I am her family." The room went still. That sentence mattered more than he knew. Mom followed us to the front hall and accused me of upsetting Chloe over a seating chart. I told her the chart was not the issue. My sister's name was sitting on a plan for my venue. She called it an exercise, so I told her to use the country club floor plan next time. When she reached for my arm, I stepped back. Real hurt crossed her face, but it hardened into judgment almost at once. "You have always been territorial," she said. The word landed gently, which made it worse. I looked around the house where I had given up the first slice, the saved money, the easier schedule, and the quieter opinion. "I am getting married there," I said. "That is not territory. That is a contract." I left before she could answer. The next morning, I removed Mom as a planning contact. June confirmed that Denise Collins could no longer discuss changes with the venue or its vendors, and all communication would come through me and Evan. I expected an explosion. Mom sent a thumbs up instead. The quiet worried me more. 3 days later, Chloe called from her car. She began by asking whether I had removed Mom, then said our mother felt humiliated. I reminded her about the second guest list and the seating chart. Chloe tried to call both things brainstorming until I asked one simple question. Why was she brainstorming your wedding inside my contract? That ended the performance. Chloe admitted the country club had released their date 2 weeks earlier because Lucas's commission was delayed and they had missed the second deposit. They had hidden it from everyone outside the immediate family. I looked across my office at the cream contract folder behind the glass cabinet. The problem was no longer vague. Chloe and Lucas had no venue. Lucas's mother needed serious surgery in November, and they wanted to marry before another procedure became necessary. Her voice cracked as she explained it. For a moment, I felt the old pull. Chloe was in trouble, so Mara could handle a change. I asked enough questions to understand the medical situation. It was serious, and I was truly sorry, but it did not require taking someone else's wedding. I offered to help them search for another place. Willow House is already paid for, Chloe said. My hand went still. By me and Evan. She said she knew, but her answer sounded thin. Then she admitted Mom had told her I might move to the community hall. Chloe had accepted that claim because the alternative was facing what she and Lucas could not afford. I asked when Mom had checked the hall. Chloe resisted, then admitted it had been the previous week. That was before the seating chart, before our argument, and before I removed access. Mom had not been brainstorming, she had been relocating me. Chloe tried to describe the hall's new floors as if better flooring changed the theft. It was a perfect family habit, point to what remained and never mention what had been taken. I said no. She asked me to look at the hall, and I refused. She asked what she and Lucas were supposed to do, and the sincerity in her voice hurt more than anger would have. You are supposed to plan the wedding you can afford. She went quiet, then accused me of sounding like a bank. I looked around my office at steel calculations, inspection photos, and a framed picture of Evan holding my hard hat over his heart. A bank might have transferred the date if the paperwork allowed it. I would not. Chloe ended the call without saying goodbye. At 6 that evening, Mom appeared at our apartment with a covered casserole. Evan opened the door but did not invite her inside. She said she needed to speak with her daughter. Evan answered that she could speak to me from the hallway, and I came to stand beside him. Mom held out the casserole as if dinner might reset the conversation. I left it in her hands and asked what she had told Chloe. She admitted offering a solution, but described the cost to me as an inconvenience. That distinction explained more than any apology could have. Mom used Lucas's sick mother to defend the timing. I told her I understood the fear, but my wedding was not a spare room that could be reassigned. She called me cold. I reminded her that I had offered to help find another venue, and she said nothing comparable was available. Then choose something different." Her mouth tightened. She said I had the advantage of time and money because I always saved, while Chloe lived differently. That was supposed to explain why I should lose. Evan leaned against the doorframe and asked her to state the request plainly. Mom wanted our ceremony and reception moved to the community hall so Chloe could use Willow House. Then Evan asked who would pay the costs created by moving our vendors, renting equipment for the hall, and rebuilding the schedule. Mom waved away every number. She said it could be worked out. "By whom?" he asked. Her eyes moved to me. There it was. Myra could handle it. I answered with one word. "No." Mom's shoulders lowered as if I had failed a moral test. She warned that I might need my sister one day. I told her I hoped Chloe would help me without taking my wedding. Then Mom said she and Dad had given me everything they could. I thought of the drafting course, the grocery store cake, and the phrase "you understand." "You gave me what was left after Chloe needed something?" Her face changed. She called that a terrible thing to say, and I told her it had been a terrible thing to learn. Mom placed the casserole on the hallway floor and left. I stood there after the elevator closed, trying to decide whether I felt relief or grief. Evan picked up the dish and asked if I wanted to throw it away. "No, it is still chicken." He smiled, and we ate it with rice at the kitchen table. That ordinary meal kept me from turning the confrontation into a tragedy. My mother had not stopped loving me, but she had built a version of love where my flexibility proved my goodness. The more I surrendered, the better daughter I became. I was done earning love that way. The next morning, I called every vendor, changed every password, removed every planning contact, and added a verbal passphrase. The phrase was "copper leaves," after the seal on our contract. No one could change flowers, food, music, rentals, or timing without that phrase and written approval. Bate, our florist, said, "I have seen difficult mothers. Yours is organized." I did not know whether to laugh. Our caterer, River Table, found 2 recent inquiries under my event number. One asked about increasing the guest count to 120. The other requested prime rib, a champagne wall, and a late-night dessert station. The coordinator had replied that the venue limit was 120 and any increase required client approval, and the inquiries came from a new email address. The address was Perfect October Family at a common mail service, and the attached name was Denise Cole. Mom's maiden name was Cole, and I asked the coordinator to forward everything. Then I opened our shared drive and made a new folder. I called it Unauthorized Requests. Evan saw the name that evening. "That sounds serious." "It is accurate." He sat beside me while I showed him the messages. The first was polite. The second claimed I was overwhelmed and had asked my mother to handle details. The third said the family was considering a different bride and groom configuration. Evan read that line twice. "What does that even mean?" "It means they are trying to keep my contract and replace us." He looked at me. "Do you want to cancel the wedding?" The question startled me. "With you?" "No, the event." I looked at the ring on my hand. For one breath, I imagined a courthouse, 2 witnesses, and dinner after. No portal, no seating chart, no mother measuring whose need mattered more, and then I imagined Willow House in October. The glass room, the maple trees, Evan's grandfather on the covered porch. "No," I said, "I want our wedding." "Then we keep it." He closed the laptop. "We do not have to give them another inch." That night, I moved the cream contract folder from the desk drawer to our small home safe. The copper seal caught the light before I closed the door, and it had been a pretty detail when I signed. Now it felt like a boundary I could hold. For the next month, the pressure moved through other people. No one asked why my sister's wedding required mine to disappear. Then Dad came to my office. He had never visited before. He stood in the lobby holding 2 coffees and looking uncomfortable beneath a model of a highway interchange. I took him to a small conference room. He pushed 1 cup toward me. "No sugar," he said. I remembered. That almost undid me. Dad was never the architect of our family rules. He was the man who stood near them and handed out coffee afterward. "Mom sent you," I said. "She asked me to talk." "That is not the same answer." He looked down. "No, it isn't." We sat across from each other beneath a screen filled with someone else's project schedule. Dad rubbed his thumb along the cup lid. "Your sister is scared about Lucas's mother." "I know. Your mom thinks this could keep peace." "For whom?" He did not answer. I pulled the unauthorized requests up on my laptop and turned it toward him. "She told the caterer there might be a different bride and groom." Dad read the email, his face tightened. "She should not have written that. She should not have planned it. Your mother gets carried away. She checked the church hall before she asked me." He looked toward the glass wall. I lowered my voice. "If I agree, what happens to the money Evan and I lose? We could help." "How much?" He blinked. "Whatever is reasonable. Our current contracts total more than $24,000. Moving could cost almost half of that again." He leaned back. "I did not know, because no one asked." Dad stared at the numbers on the screen, and then he said the sentence I had expected. "You are better with money than Chloe." "That is why I should lose mine?" "No, but that is the plan." He pressed both hands around his coffee. When I was a child, Dad's silence had looked gentle compared with Mom's certainty. At 33, I finally understood that silence could be a tool. It let the loudest person call the result inevitable. I waited. He said, "What would make this right?" "Tell Mom to stop. She will not listen to me." "Then stop helping her." His eyes lifted. I knew the answer before he gave it. "I do not want to choose between my daughters." "You already did." He left the second coffee on the table when he went. Evan and I decided not to remove my parents from the guest list. Not yet. We sent them a short email together. It said the wedding would remain at Willow House, all vendor decisions were final, and any effort to redirect guests would end their invitation. Mom did not reply, and Dad wrote, "Understood." Chloe sent a single line, "I am not trying to steal your wedding." I wanted to believe her, so I wrote back, "Then stop helping Mom move me out of it." She did not answer. A week later, my college roommate called. She had received a printed card with a gold border. It said our ceremony had been relocated to Grace Community Hall due to unexpected venue limitations. The card included the correct date and a new time. At the bottom, it said, "Reception details to follow." My roommate assumed I had changed plans. She called because the card did not look like our invitations. I asked her to send a photo. Mom's return address was on the envelope, and my hands went cold. Evan was in the living room grading scholarship essays. I carried my phone to him without speaking. He read the card, and then he put the essays aside. "How many?" "I do not know." We found out over the next 2 hours. Mom had mailed relocation cards to 32 guests from my side of the family. She had chosen people she believed would accept the change without calling me. 3 had already booked different hotels closer to the church hall. One elderly cousin had canceled because the new location looked hard to reach without a car. The disruption was no longer an idea. It was moving through mailboxes. I called Mom, she did not answer. I called Dad, he answered on the first ring. "Did you know about the cards?" A long pause. "I helped with the stamps." I sat down. "Did you read one?" "Your mother said the venue was changing." "Because I agreed." "She said it was being resolved." I heard a television in the background and a game show audience applauded. "Dad, I sent you an email saying the opposite." "I thought you were still discussing it." "No, you hoped she would wear me down." He said my name. I ended the call. That night, Evan and I wrote every guest a simple message. Our wedding location and time had not changed, and any other notice was unauthorized. The message ended with, "Please contact us directly with questions." I hated the word unauthorized in a wedding email. It was still the truth. June offered to send formal confirmation from Willow House. We accepted. We also removed my parents and Chloe from every schedule copy. If you have ever had someone create confusion and then call your reaction dramatic, you know why documentation matters. What would you protect first? The event, the relationship, or the truth? Mom arrived at our apartment the next evening. This time, she did not bring food. She held one of the gold-bordered cards in her hand. "You embarrassed me in front of the whole family." I opened the door only as wide as the chain allowed. "You mailed false information." I mailed a solution. "You told my guests my wedding moved. It can still move." "No," her face flushed. "Do you know how your correction made me look?" "Accurate." The word came out before I could stop it. She stared at me. I had never spoken to her that way, and behind me, Evan stayed out of sight. We had agreed that I would lead every conversation about my family. Mom lowered her voice. "Chloe has already told Lucas's family that Willow House is available." Then Chloe lied. She trusted me. So did I. That reached her. I saw it. For 1 second, the anger left her face. Then she lifted her chin. "I am trying to keep this family together. By replacing me, by asking the daughter who is stable to make room for the daughter who needs help." There is always a daughter who needs help, and it is never me. You do not need help. I needed a mother who did not mail me out of my own wedding. Her mouth opened and no sound came. I closed the door. The next morning, Chloe came alone. She sat on the bench outside our building and waited until I left for work. Her hair was tied back and she wore no makeup. I almost walked past her. "Please," she said. I stayed standing. She held out her phone. On the screen was a message thread with Mom. The first message was from 6 weeks earlier. "Mara will complain, but she always comes around once the practical work is done." Another said, "The key is to commit enough money that backing out becomes wasteful." Chloe had asked, "Are you sure she agreed?" Mom replied, "She will. I know my daughter." I read the thread twice. "Why are you showing me this?" Because I did not understand how far she had gone. "You made a seating chart. She said you were considering the hall." I never was. Chloe wiped her palms against her jeans. I wanted to believe her. "You wanted Willow House." "Yes." The honesty stopped me. She looked toward the parking lot. When the country club released our date, I felt like everyone would know we could not afford what we announced. Mom said she could fix it. She said you cared more about being married than where it happened. Did that sound like me? No. Then why did you believe it? Her eyes filled. Because it gave me what I wanted. There it was, not an excuse but an answer. I sat at the other end of the bench, and for a while, neither of us spoke. Chloe unlocked her phone again. There is more. Mom had contacted River Table using the new email. She requested a tasting for a revised menu and added Chloe's favorite foods. She told them the family would cover the upgrade after the primary client approved it. Chloe and Lucas had attended the tasting. I turned toward her. "You ate food under my event number." Her face crumpled. "I know how that sounds." "It sounds accurate." Mom said it was a general tasting. The thread says revised menu. I did not read every email. "You keep not reading the part where I disappear." She flinched. I handed back the phone. "Send me screenshots." She did. Then she said, "I will tell Mom we are not taking it. Tell Lucas too." "I will." "That does not fix the cards." "I know. It does not restore my trust." "I know." For once, she did not ask me to make her feel better. She stood and left. I watched her drive away in a car my parents had helped her buy. I did not feel victorious. I felt tired. 2 days passed without a call from Mom, and then River Table emailed me an invoice, and the total was $17,940. It covered dinner for 120 guests, upgraded beef, a champagne wall, past desserts, extra staff, and a 5-tier cake from a bakery I had never contacted. A note at the top said revised package. A gray line beneath it said pending primary client approval, and Mom forwarded the same invoice 3 minutes later. She had cropped out the gray line. Her message said, "Please pay by Friday so Chloe's day is not ruined." That was when the family argument became a direct demand, and I called her. She told me my wedding had been moved to Grace Community Hall. She said the church had held the date and Dad had found a rental company for tables. She spoke as if the decision were complete. Then she said, "You can get married anywhere. Chloe only gets one chance to have this." I opened the safe while she talked, and the cream folder was exactly where I had placed it. I laid the contract on my desk and turned to the planning contact section. "You cannot transfer the booking," I said. "I am not transferring it. We are adjusting the family use." "There is no family use. Do not hide behind language. It is a contract. Language is the point." She exhaled sharply. "We have already spent money." "Who is we?" "Your father and I paid the menu deposit." I looked at the invoice again. "How much?" $2,400. "Under whose name?" A pause. "Mine." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You paid a deposit on food I did not approve." "We paid because you were refusing to make a decision." I made one. "You did not like it." Her voice rose. "Chloe has told Lucas's entire family. His mother moved her medical appointments. People bought flights. Do you understand what you are doing?" "What I am doing?" "Yes, Mara, you are choosing a building over your sister." I looked at the copper seal. "No. You chose my building for her." She went silent, and then she said something very softly. "If you make me look like a liar, I will never forgive you." There are sentences that explain an entire relationship. That was one. She was not asking me to save Chloe. She was asking me to protect the version of herself she had sold to everyone else. "I did not mail those cards," I said. I ended the call. River Table confirmed that the $2,400 covered a private tasting, menu development, and a temporary hold on extra staff. The payment came from Mom's card. The balance was not mine unless I approved the revised package. I did not. Our original catering order remained intact at $9,600. We had already paid half. The coordinator sounded embarrassed. "Your mother was persuasive." "She usually is." "We should have copied you earlier." "Yes." She apologized again and locked the event record, and June called an hour later. At my request, June prepared an authorization removing every outside planning contact, along with confirmations of our original schedule and guest count. I told her I would sign them only if the meeting proved that boundary was necessary. Mom had asked to attend our final walkthrough the following Tuesday. She claimed the family needed to resolve a misunderstanding in person. I looked at the date on my calendar. Our wedding was 11 days away. I could have refused. Instead, I said yes. Evan turned from the stove when I told him. "You want her there?" "I want one conversation with the contract on the table and the venue manager in the room." "What do you need from me?" "Stand beside me. Always." We spent the weekend preparing, and not for a fight, for clarity. I printed the original contract, the access log, the florist request, the second guest list, the gold relocation card, the catering emails, and Mom's message about the bill. I arranged them by date in a slim copper-colored binder. I hated the resemblance to a legal file. Then I remembered that evidence only feels cold to people who benefited from confusion. Chloe called Sunday night. "Mom says the walkthrough is to divide the venue." "It is not. She told Lucas to come. He is not on the appointment." I told him not to. I heard strain in her voice. "Are you coming?" I asked. "Do you want me there?" "No, but you are part of this and I will not pretend otherwise." She took a breath. "I will come alone." On Monday, Dad left me a voicemail, and he said Mom was not sleeping. He said the family was at a breaking point. He asked whether I could postpone my wedding for 6 months and let Chloe use the date. I listened once. Then I saved it with the other records. I did not call back. That evening, Evan and I walked around our neighborhood. The air smelled like leaves and wood smoke. We passed a restaurant where people sat under string lights, laughing over bowls of pasta. "Do you still want a wedding?" he asked. "Yes." "Do you still want this wedding?" I thought about it. "Not the version with my mother in every corner," he nodded. "We can change anything that belongs to us." So we did. We removed the formal parent entrances. We changed the family photo list. We asked Evan's father to give the welcome toast and my college roommate to hold my bouquet during the ceremony. We did not replace my parents with better actors, and we built a day that did not depend on them behaving differently. Before bed, I opened the cream folder one last time. On the final page, below our signatures, was the clause Mom had missed. Planning contacts may support the clients, they may not replace them. The contract used more formal words. The meaning was the same. Tuesday afternoon was bright and cold. Willow House looked exactly as it had on our first tour, with brick walls holding the late sun and copper leaves gathered along the porch steps. Evan and I arrived 10 minutes early. June had placed the cream contract folder at one end of the long dining table, and my copper binder rested beside it. Mom arrived at 3 on the dot in a navy dress, carrying a leather tote. Chloe followed several steps behind in jeans and a gray sweater. Dad was not with them. Mom kissed the air near my cheek. Then she told everyone to keep the meeting constructive. She sounded like a person opening a meeting she expected to control. June invited us to sit. Evan took the chair beside me. Chloe sat across from him. Mom remained standing until June asked her again. Then Mom placed 3 folders on the table. One held the catering invoice, another held the rental estimate for the community hall, and the third contained a printed schedule listing Chloe and Lucas as the couple. The certainty of it stole my breath for half a second. Mom saw that and mistook it for weakness. "I have done most of the work," she said. "Mara can marry at the hall at noon, and her reception can start right after. We can reset Willow House for Chloe by 5. She spoke about my wedding as if it were a shipment being redirected. June waited until Mom finished. Then she explained that Willow House did not host 2 unrelated weddings under one contract. "The clients are still different," June said. Mom turned to me. "That is why Mara can sign the change." I opened the cream folder. "No," she continued as though I had not spoken. "The rental company could deliver on Friday, the church volunteers could decorate, and my band could use the hall's small stage." I said, "Our guests were invited here." Mom answered, "They received an update." I slid one of the gold-bordered cards across the table. "They received false information." She would not touch it. "We are not going backward," she said. "I am going back to the original agreement." I named each part slowly. The original venue, the original guest list, the original menu. The original flowers, the original couple. Mom opened the catering invoice. "Your refusal wastes $2,400, she said. I reminded her that she had paid that deposit without my approval for a menu Chloe chose. Chloe looked down. Mom ordered her to explain why timing mattered. She wanted the illness in Lucas's family placed between us like a weight. Chloe did not cooperate. "Mom, stop." It was the first time her voice had carried across the table. Mom blinked, then told Chloe to remind me about the surgery. Chloe answered that I already knew. The room became very quiet. Chloe said she had told Mom they were not taking Willow House. Mom dismissed that as panic. "You do not understand what you are giving up," she told Chloe. "It was never mine," Chloe said. Mom stared at her as if those 4 words were betrayal. Then she accused me of turning my sister against her. Chloe corrected her. She had seen the messages. Mom asked which messages, though her face already knew. I opened the copper binder. Then I placed the screenshots on the table. Her own sentence faced upward. "The key is to commit enough money that backing out becomes wasteful." Mom read it and pushed the page away. She said private family messages did not belong in a venue meeting. "They explain the invoice," I said. She called the messages proof that she had tried to solve a crisis. June reminded her that no approved change existed. Mom straightened in her chair. She had once been an authorized contact, and she believed that fact should carry more power than the contract gave it. June explained the difference. Coordinating did not mean replacing the clients. "That is a technical distinction," Mom said. For months, she had relied on that phrase. A budget was selfish. A deadline was flexible. A signed agreement was only paperwork when it blocked what she wanted. I turned the cream contract to the marked clause. This is the distinction between helping me and taking my place. She glanced at the page without reading it. Then she said, "I am your mother." That is not a signature. Her eyes flashed. Evan's hand rested near mine on the table. He did not speak. Mom opened the rental estimate and changed tactics. "Then reimburse us for the hall, the tasting, and the new cards," she said. She added that Dad had placed the expenses on a credit card. I asked why I would pay for a plan I had rejected. "Your behavior made the plan necessary." Chloe whispered her name. Mom raised one finger and told her to stay out of it. My sister laughed once. It was not a happy sound. "You did all of this for my wedding, and now I should stay out." Mom said she had acted because neither daughter could see beyond herself. That was the final turn. When control stopped working, she called resistance selfish. I placed the florist email beside the second guest list. Then I added the catering request and the relocation card. "These are decisions you made after I said no. I knew you would be happy once you saw it finished. You knew I would be trapped once everyone believed you." She looked toward June. "Do you hear how she speaks to me?" she asked June. June folded her hands. "I hear a client protecting her event." Color rose into Mom's face. She turned to Evan and accused him of encouraging me. He met her eyes. "I encouraged Mara to make her own decisions." Mom warned that he was marrying into a family. "I am marrying Mara." The words were simple. Mom looked away first. I opened the final section of the copper binder. The pages June had prepared were waiting there. The authorization, the original vendor schedule, and the guest count of 84. Mom saw the signature lines and told me not to act in anger. I was not angry anymore. I had been angry when I saw the relocation card. I had been furious when she cropped the approval warning from the invoice. At Willow House, I felt clear. Mom leaned toward me. "If you sign those papers, you are choosing a venue over your family." "No, you chose my venue over me." I picked up the pen. I signed the authorization first. Then I signed the vendor schedule and the final guest count. June countersigned each page. Her pen moved softly across the paper, but the sound changed the room. Mom stood. She said Chloe needed the space for only one evening. I closed the folder. "She can have a wedding. She cannot have mine." No one spoke. The sentence stayed in the room. Mom reached toward the cream contract as if pulling it closer could restore her authority. June placed one hand on the folder. She said it remained with the clients. Mom let go. I slid the catering invoice back across the table. The revised package was canceled. The $2,400 had been paid under Mom's name. River Table would apply the proper charges to the tasting and planning work. Any remaining balance would return to her card. Mom stared at the page. "How much am I supposed to lose?" The staff had worked. The food had been served. The menu had been developed. Those had been her choices. Then she asked whether I truly expected her to absorb the cost. "You expected me to pay $17,940. It was for your sister." "Exactly." Mom looked at Chloe and demanded support. Chloe drew a slow breath. She apologized for attending the tasting. She also apologized for making the seating chart. She admitted that she had wanted Willow House enough to believe a story that should never have made sense. Then she repeated that she was not taking it. Mom called both of us ungrateful. I looked at the woman who had packed my college care boxes, sat through venue tour, and mailed me out of my own wedding. Love and harm can come from the same hands. That does not make the harm imaginary. June cleared her throat and turned a tablet toward Mom. Her access to Willow House records was closed. The staff would no longer discuss the event with her. For the first time that afternoon, Mom's confidence broke. "Are you banning me from your wedding?" "Yes." Chloe turned toward me. I told her she could attend as a guest if she came to support us. There would be no planning, requests, or speeches. She nodded at once. Mom asked about Dad. I reminded her that he had helped mail the false cards even after receiving my written correction. She argued that he had not understood. I said he had understood enough to choose silence. Mom lowered her voice. You will regret humiliating your father. I am not announcing any of this. I am setting a boundary. Then she asked about herself. You are not invited. She pressed one hand against the table. She said I could not mean it. I told her I did. She used the role again. She was my mother. I told her she had used that role to take authority I never gave her. Tears rose in her eyes. I had seen my mother cry when people refused the version of events she needed. These tears were real, so was my answer. I love you. You are still not coming. Mom picked up her tote. Chloe started to help, then stopped. Mom retrieved it herself. At the door, she said I had destroyed the family over a party. I stood. No, I stopped you from destroying my wedding to protect a lie. She left. Through the tall windows, I watched her cross the gravel drive alone. No one chased her. June waited until Mom's car disappeared. Then she asked whether Evan and I still wanted to complete the walkthrough. My knees felt weak. Evan stood and offered his hand. Yes, I said. We would. We crossed the ceremony lawn. Then we checked the covered porch and the glass room. June showed us where the band would connect its equipment. Evan checked the chair reserved for his grandfather. Chloe followed without speaking and carried the copper binder. At the reception doors, the late sun turned every window gold. For the first time in months, I could see Willow House without my mother's plan laid over it. It looked like ours again. 11 days later, I woke before dawn. For a few seconds, I forgot everything that had happened. Then I saw my dress hanging beside the window and remembered it was my wedding day. Dad had written, I am sorry I helped send the cards. I should have read what you wrote and stood up for you. I understand why I am not there. There was no request at the end. I read it twice and placed the phone face down. Mom sent nothing. Chloe arrived at 9 carrying coffee, safety pins, and the silver mechanical pencil she had given me years earlier. I thought you might need something that is yours, she said. The pencil made no practical sense in a bridal room. I kept it in my bag anyway. She did not ask to be forgiven. She steamed my dress, answered the door when vendors knocked, and stayed out of every decision. That was a beginning, and a few hours later, the ceremony took place beneath the maple trees. 84 chairs faced the porch. Every one belonged to someone we had invited. Evan stood at the front in his navy suit. When he saw me, his whole face changed. No missing parent could take that moment from us. His father gave the welcome toast, and my college roommate held my bouquet. June watched from the back with her red glasses pushed into her hair. The flowers were rust and cream, the cake had 2 lemon tiers, and no champagne wall appeared because nothing needed to be larger. During dinner, I looked around the glass room and understood what my mother had never accepted. Space is not wasted because you refuse to fill it with people who feel entitled to it. Some empty space is peace. Chloe stayed until the band packed up. Before she left, she hugged me and said, "It was always yours." I believed she finally understood. 3 weeks later, she and Lucas married at the county courthouse. His mother was there, tired but smiling. They had dinner afterward at a small Italian restaurant with 20 people. Chloe paid for it from money she and Lucas actually had. She sent me one photo. There were no chandeliers or gold-edged place cards. She looked relieved, but our relationship did not become perfect. Trust does not regrow because someone cries in the right room, and she started calling before she assumed. I started answering only when I wanted to. That was healthier than the closeness we used to perform. Dad mailed a written apology in November, and he named what he had done. He did not say Mom made him do it. I wrote back that I needed time. Mom sent a long email about forgiveness, family loyalty, and how deeply she had been wounded. She never mentioned the relocation cards, the false guest list, or the invoice. I did not answer. River Table returned $600 of her deposit. The rest covered the tasting, staff time, and menu work she had ordered. She told relatives I had forced her to waste money. The relatives who had received her false cards knew better. For once, I did not correct every version of the story. I had corrected the part that touched my life. I still thought about Mom standing at the Willow House table and the clause beneath our signatures. I did not regret making the conflict final. I regretted how long I had believed keeping peace meant giving her my place. That was the real change. I had spent years proving I could handle less. Less attention, less help, less room. My mother saw that strength and treated it like permission. It was not. Being capable does not make your needs optional. Being dependable does not turn your life into a family backup plan. If someone you love keeps calling your boundary selfish, ask who benefited when you had none. And tell me this, where would you have drawn the line? The cream contract folder now sits on a shelf in our living room. Inside it are our signatures, the final guest list, and one copper maple leaf I picked up from the porch after the wedding. The leaf is dry and fragile. The boundary is not.